All right, Wolfpack, what's happening? Hopefully, you guys are having a good weekend. Or I guess no, had a good weekend because this will be coming out on Monday. Another very special episode. We're going back to back with football guys' talent in on this show. Last week we had Jordan McNamara. This week we have a very talented up and coming superstar. I'm sure it will be no time before she surpasses me and leaves me in the dust. She's been crushing in the game. I first discovered her through one of Troy's tweets, I think. I'd like seeing you, on my timeline here and there. But, Troy tweeted, and, I'm a big fan of Troy, even though I make fun of him all the time. We have like, good chirping back and forth. But he tweeted your stuff. And then I read a couple of your articles. I read your Jalen Hurts article. I'm like, yo, this chick knows what the fuck she's talking about. All right. She knows what she's talking about. So I had to get her on the show. Also a CPA. So this is the first hashtag 2 CPAs, 1 pod coming at you guys on the YouTube airwaves. FFB Victoria, aka Victoria Geary. Is that how you say your last name?
Yes, you got it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Victoria Geary. Thank you for coming on the pod. How are you doing? I really appreciate you taking your time on a weekend, on a Saturday, to hop on and talk football with me. But maybe let the viewers know, a little bit about you, where you're from, what you're all about, where to find you, how to support you, and all that.
Yeah, first off, thank you for having me. So stoked to be here. You are hysterical and witty on Twitter, so I appreciate that. Because, it can be a little hard out in those streets. So you can find me at FFB_Victoria. I am from Buffalo, New York, so hashtag Bills Mafia all the way. I still have yet to break my own table, but we'll see what happens this year. I'm working for Ball Blast and Football Guys, putting out content there. I got a Austin Eckler article coming out soon for Football Guys. He's one of my guys this
love
year.
That. Link me that as soon as it drops because I love Austin Eckler. So any Austin Eckler propaganda, I'm all in.
Absolutely. We'll make sure to do that.
Cool. So, I mean, look, you literally came like out of nowhere. I mean, I think like within this last, I don't know, is it a year? Has it been a year? I don't know. Time kind of like moves in a loop for me during like the off season. I don't know what day it is. I don't know what time it is, but you popped up. Now you're like blown up. You're on Twitter, you're on shows, you're on YouTube, you're on Clubhouse hosting cool stuff like that women chat that you did, which I was listening on. So that was super cool. But I'm curious, like as a fellow bean counting nerd, how did you get into fantasy football?
Oh boy. Well, I always loved my Bills. I got into my fandom really grew in college because a lot of my guy friends were they're diehards. They're savages. They would get a bus for the home opener every year and just wake up at 6 a.m., be drunk on the bus by 8 before you even get into the parking lot, like just diehard Bills fans. So that fandom grew in college. And then one of my first jobs out of college, my COO was the commissioner of our work league. And he was like, we need one more spot, one more spot to fill. Please join. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it just seems like so much and so complicated. And then he's like, just try it. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it next year. And I just fell in love with it. Just I feel like it was the numbers that drew it to me at first, and now I'm just like a total stats and numbers nerd.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome. I mean, I have a very similar story to you. Like I'm just I just a nobody that just like kind of started talking shit on fantasy football on Twitter. Was going back and forth with like Ray before he was like super famous, and like guys like Garrett and stuff. We would just talk shit about football, and then eventually blew up into what it is now. But it's cool. Like you, I'm also a very numbers junkie. I started off in accounting, and then I moved to like investment banking side and finance world. So like everything I do kind of comes from the number side. So it's always interesting to chop it up with someone else because I feel like when numbers people debate each other, it's really easy, right? It's really easy to tell like maybe somewhere where we're off or like one of us is interpreting the data incorrectly because like it's just numbers, right? Like numbers don't really lie. Whereas like sometimes I get into like a film debate and it's like I don't even know what people are saying. I don't know what you're talking about. Like everyone has different opinions. There's no way to prove anything, and then everyone just leaves the debate angry. So I'm interested to kind of get into a couple of these players with you, which we will. But first off, I mean, you mentioned a couple times now, Bills Mafia. I know now you're from Buffalo, so it makes sense. I'm assuming your husband also is very into Bills Mafia. So you guys are kind of like a Bills Mafia power couple. Okay,
absolutely.
That's beautiful thing. Love to hear that. So, I mean, were they your team like just since college, you said, or like did you have some influences in your childhood? I mean, like what does it take to become a Bills Mafia truther? Because now that Tom Brady's left the Patriots, I'm thinking. I mean, Josh Allen's really fun to watch. So it's been fun cheering on Bills. I don't know if I'm qualified to be part of Bills Mafia, but maybe let the folks out there what it means to be a Bills Mafia compatriot.
Oh my gosh, we'll happily take you on our bandwagon. We will. I honestly love seeing people be like, I'm an honorary Mafia member now, just because, like you said, Josh Allen is so fun to watch. And he always was, even in his rookie year, sophomore season. You still were kind of like, we're not winning tons and tons of games, but at least it's much more fun to watch than seeing Nate Peterman throw 5 interceptions in his first NFL start.
I think everyone else would disagree with you. I thought watching Nate Peterman throw 5 interceptions was actually pretty funny.
Just broke my heart. I was like, this
poor guy.
Basically, to be Bills Mafia, you got to live and breathe the Buffalo Bills. When you leave, when you go into a place, a restaurant, you say "Go Bills." When you leave, you say "Go Bills." You don't say goodbye or hello. That's what you say.
I like that.
You don't have to have broken a table, though. Many people have. Jump from an RV. Usually it's an RV. Go to the top of it, jump off to the flaming table, break an arm or a limb. Then you're really.
I probably won't be sacrificing any limbs to become part of the Bills Mafia. I kind of need those. But the funny thing is, so I'm from Toronto originally, so I'm Canadian.
Nice.
Obviously, I don't have any geographical ties to any NFL team, but the most games we got broadcasted were like Bills and Patriots. So I was like, well, I'm not about to subject myself to fucking Tyrod Taylor fandom. So I'm going with Tom Brady, the GOAT. So that's how I became a Patriots fan.
Nice.
And have been ever since. So I'm technically a bandwagoner Patriots fan as well. But I've been faithful to them. I mean, I cried when we lost to Eli Manning and the Giants with that Plesko Burris throw. I cried that year. And then I cried again when he made that amazing throw to Manningham. But we've had some good run. I've had a good run as a Patriots fan. Even if I have to lose a couple times, I'm okay with it. It is what it is.
Oh my goodness! Just a couple times. We've sucked for 20 years, and they still fill the stadium because there's nothing else to do in Buffalo. You eat chicken wings, you drink beer, you watch football.
That video, the video of like Kyle Williams when the Andy Dalton throw and then Bills make the playoffs.
My gosh,
does that get you? You get teared up when you see that? I get a little bit emotional when I see that. It's like fun to see like that part of sports. I think it's really cool. Oh my gosh.
I did love to see that insight too, to just see the whole locker room watching that game.
Yeah.
We hadn't been to the playoffs in ages since then. We were like, hopefully the Bengals can beat the Ravens so we get in. Like, it's pathetic, but we did it. Broke.
And then it was cool to see Bills Mafia donate to Andy Dalton's charity. So that's what made me kind of like become a fan of Bills Mafia. All right, enough about the Bills. Well, for a little bit, enough about the Bills, but I want to talk a little bit about strategy. This is a process related show. We don't talk redraft that often, but I know you do a lot of content on the redraft side for Ball Blast. Which one do you prefer to play? Do you like redraft more? Do you like dynasty more? Do you like both? What's your deal there?
I'm on the newer side to dynasty. I'm still just redraft through and through. That's my preferred format. Dynasty, sometimes in the leagues I've been in, I have been known to just complain a little about the slow draft format. We did it, so everyone jokes with me like, oh, Victoria's not going to join another league because we took our Ball Blast league, we took maybe 2.5 months for
that's a long draft
team. Yeah, it was 14 team, I think 30 something rounds.
I can tell you that's not the norm. Like the norm usually wrap up a draft within like 1 to 2 weeks in a slow draft for like 8-hour clock. So you guys must have had some real clock munchers on there. So hopefully you'll have better experience. I would encourage you to keep trying it out, but slow drafts is the way to go, man. You got to have time to make trades. And as someone that's a wheeler and dealer, I appreciate the slow clock. I burn it sometimes, but not because I'm just sitting there burning. It's because I'm waiting on response from people. But you give it another shot. I think you'll get used to it. The key is you got to enter like a couple of drafts, so you're not just waiting on like the one draft, and you can like kind of bounce back and forth.
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you there. I think that's why, because we started that maybe in February, maybe March. I don't know what time is now. So I think it was that all the way back then. So nobody was doing like tons and tons of startups then. I definitely needed to get into a couple more.
well, you're just getting into Dynasty. What are some of the biggest changes to your approach, right? Because redraft and Dynasty, it's almost like two separate games, but it's still very similar. Like what are things that you're kind of finding yourself learning about, focusing on, looking at in Dynasty compared to what you looked at in redraft?
I mean, of course, you're thinking more long term, obviously. Looking at more of breakout ages to say, is this person close to a potential breakout age where if they haven't broken out yet, somebody
Mhm.
like, I don't know. I was just thinking about DJ Moore before this pod actually, and if he has ever truly broken out, and if he really ever will. He was very frustrating for me last year. That was
Yeah,
the
I mean, look, I think at the cost of what people were paying last year, it probably was a little bit disappointing.
yeah,
But in terms of like the context of him as a profile, as a wide receiver, I'd say he's already hit based on where you got him in rookie drafts. But honestly,
yeah,
it just depends on where you are. Does he have like top 5 upside? I don't think so. I mean, I've never thought that he does,
yeah.
but I think what he is a perennial, low end wide receiver one, high end wide receiver two, which is what you also need on your teams. Like as long as he's not your like wide receiver one, I think you're good. I mean, most of my investments in DJ Moore happened 2 to 3 years ago, so he's usually like my wide receiver two, wide receiver three. So I think at that point it's good. He's like a souped up Golden Tate is how I've always thought about him, right? Like he's not going to throw that
Oh,
many touchdowns.
yeah, that's a great comparison. Jeez.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely like it's interesting, man. As you play more and more Dynasty, like because you're coming from the number side, you're gonna see more and more stats, and especially at the wide receiver position, there's just like way more stuff to break down. There's like breakout age, there's like yards per team pass attempt, which is like how efficient they are from college, and then just analyzing the wide receiver position. I think you're gonna love it the more you do it. And once you kind of like get more into that, we want to get more heated debates, and me and you start arguing over Twitter about who's better between the 2023 class. We'll get you back on here again. But it's good to see. It's kind of cool to see other people come in the dynasty game, come from the redraft side. But I will say, one thing is, have you seen like I've seen this people that come from redraft to dynasty for the most part don't account for like age and forward thinking enough, but there are some guys that like overcorrect and they're just like, oh wow, it's
Yes.
dynasty, it's all age now, like fuck old guys like Mike Evans, you're shit, you're dropping my rankings, Keenan Allen, you're a bum, like get out of here. Like have you seen that at all in your drafts and your experience?
Absolutely. And I'm like, how is this while I'm in those drafts? I'm like, how is this person gonna field a full roster? Or they picked like, 7 rookie picks and then we're
Yeah.
doing the rookie draft later. I'm just like, how are you gonna field an active roster with all these people? You're gonna have like they're gonna have James White on all their teams, and just how are you gonna score this year? That doesn't seem fun to me. I'm more so like in the middle
Yeah.
type person. I'm
That
not like avoiding an Amari Cooper. God forbid he's going to turn 27. Like that's ridiculous.
that's kind of like where I was when I first started. I took a very balanced approach, and that worked a lot. These days, I'm usually more extreme. I'm either like, I'm either all in trying to win, or I'll just like punt the first year and I'll go like super young and just play the value game, and then eventually I'll build like a monster team. But like when you're first starting, it's good to take a nice balanced approach, especially because you're like starting this year. The value that is falling in veteran drafts is insane. Like I am in a veteran draft right now. I just got like Mike Evans in like the 7th round. We got like what I got Michael
Like
Thomas in the 6th round. Someone got Stefon Diggs in the 5th. Like it's crazy stuff. It's wild west out there. So
that's
get in some more startups and have
ridiculous.
some fun. All right. I always like to look back and look at like where I fucked up to see like, if there's any process change I would have made. Like I look back to 2020. I had this discussion with Jordan last week and I'm like, man, I whiffed so hard on Josh Allen. So, I mean, I'm sure you didn't because you're Bills Mafia, but I was like, dude, this guy freaking cannot throw a ball. Like he is one of the most inaccurate people ever. And then what he did was just remarkable. Like I don't think we've ever seen the progression that we saw from Josh Allen. So I would probably make that mistake again. But the one part that I really, really just undersold and underplayed, which is actually an embarrassment because I've been a Stefon Diggs truther since like forever. But when he changed teams, I'm just like, man, like Josh Allen's gonna break this guy. And I didn't think like, oh well, Stefon Diggs is actually gonna like really rise Josh Allen together. They're just gonna be like elite and just be like the best in the league, right? And then I really like how your teams built the front office, like built around Josh Allen, built around his strengths. They're not asking him to do stuff he can't do. He's out there slinging the rock. But I truly feel like this though. Like I think the Josh Allen progression is going to ruin a lot of people down the line because we're not going to see this many times ever, if ever again, this type of progression. What do you think about that?
I am in agreement with you on all fronts. I actually had him on our show sheet. Stefon Diggs is someone I missed as well. Even as a Bills fan, I should, I try not to let the fandom just really bias me. It's very difficult sometimes, but I too was the same as you. Like history shows wide receivers that change teams were not very productive in their first year, et cetera, et cetera. We know this. So I really was kind of avoiding him, even though his draft price was remarkable last year. His
Yeah.
ADP was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was quite good.
But I am in agreement with you on the quarterback thing. I think like even I've seen stuff like, well, Sam Darnold changed teams and now they're gonna give him another chance. I don't really believe in him this year. I think we're gonna see that with Tua. People saying, well, Tua's got another chance this year. Maybe he takes that Josh Allen leap, and I keep seeing it everywhere. And I'm like,
I haven't seen that. I haven't
yeah.
seen that. I'm still a believer in Tua, but I'm in no way expecting a Josh Allen type leap. I do like that they added Jalen Waddle. I do like they added Will Fuller. They're finally giving him some weapons. So this is the year where we can see, what he's made of. So I like that about him.
Exactly.
But yeah, look, the only saving grace for me, I'd say from last year, I'm missing on Stefon Diggs. I have so much Stefon Diggs already, and I never traded him. So like that was my saving grace. But
yeah,
I definitely did not get enough of him last year. You mentioned Stefon Diggs. Who else is someone that maybe a rookie that you kind of missed on last year, and then when you peel it back and think about why you missed, did that lead to any changes to your process, or was it just one of those things like, hey, look, my process are right, but this is just kind of like an outlier situation?
I think someone that was an outlier that was not a rookie, but I can get into that. Someone that was that I took a lot was Mark Andrews, and expecting, like I don't want to worry about my tight end all season, that kind of thing. And I still did. It was either 23 PPR points or 3 every week. Yeah. And that was really frustrating because you paid that value and that process worked the year before. And now it's just like, well, it was so up and down. It was just kind of an outlier for me there. I whiffed big on DJ Chark, and I already mentioned DJ Moore. I won't necessarily say I whiffed on DJ Moore. He was just it was the same thing. Never knew when to start him. You're like, oh, Atlanta, that matchup's coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Slam dunk. Dude gets like 2 catches in the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter. I'm sitting there just so frustrating. So that, not necessarily a whiff there, but DJ Chark was a big whiff. I expected a much better season from him. I know injury plagued him a little bit there, but even when he was healthy too, it's just the volume wasn't there.
Yeah. What do you think about DJ Chark going forward now with Trevor Lawrence there? Laviska Shenault there, new coaching regime. Are you back in on DJ Chark at his current price? Or are you kind of like still very, cautiously optimistic? What's the good word?
Yeah, I'd say I'm cautiously optimistic there. I don't know if he's ever going to be what we expect. I don't know if he's ever going to get there. And with all the reports coming out of camp that Shenault is just impressing everyone, I don't want to be all hype season crazy on that and just, invest.
I mean, I think I agree with you. We'll talk a little bit about it now, I guess.
Sorry.
But the Jaguars offense as a whole, I'm aware of it because like I'm not really bought into Urban Meyer. Like everything he said, I'm just like, what is he saying? Like it started off with the whole like, oh, we drafted Travis Etienne because we missed on Kadarius Toney. We want to bring in Tim Tebow,
our third down back.
Yeah, we're gonna make Tim Tebow the Taysom Hill. I think if you're taking snaps out of Trevor Lawrence's hands to give it to Tim Tebow, I'm not a fan. And I think we've seen enough of these college coaches come in and kind of just burn out. And the way he's like talking to players, like I think DJ Chark took it as well as he could. He basically called him a little boy. Like, these are grown men. Like, it's not college. So I'm very wary of this offense. I still like Laviska because I like the type of player that he is. I like those type of yak monsters that can create with the ball in their hands and kind of like hybrids, like Percy Harvin types. I just have a soft spot for those guys, but I don't think this offense will be very good. And I certainly do not think this offense will support multiple like top 24 running backs and wide receivers. So someone's going to lose out. For me, I think that's probably going to be Chark. And maybe even Laviska. But I mean, I'm curious to get your thoughts. Are you a believer in Urban Meyer? Are you a believer in this offense? Are you a believer in Trevor Lawrence, Etienne, et cetera, et cetera? I know you wrote a pretty cool article about it.
Yeah, I'm not. Urban scares me just as much as you. And the way he's talking, like I don't know if you mentioned this already on a separate pod, but what you just said when he was like, DJ Chark he's a big guy who played little. Like that is, you don't see coaches just throwing their players under the bus like that, or like
in front of the media. In front of the media, like you say that to him behind closed doors, fine, but like don't put that out there for the world to hear.
That was rough. And he's just said so many weird things. And the fact that he did come out and be like, oh, we really wanted Tony, but we were like, oh, okay. It's almost like he was describing how we feel in a redraft where he's like, oh, there's 30 seconds left.
Yeah.
ETN. Let's
Yeah.
pick ETN. Like, okay.
Yeah.
It's
Definitely a
very,
little
very weird.
on the clock panic there. Oh yeah, we missed on Kadarius Toney, so let's pick a running back. It just didn't really add up to me. I'm not a big believer in Kadarius Toney. And
No.
I know there's like some folks I talk to on the Dynasty Nerd Squad who are like, homegrown, like Cleveland, Ohio folks. And even they're like pretty skeptical about Urban Meyer. So I'm like, I'm at a little bit of a pause there. I'm going to see like kind of how it develops before I start kind of going all in. I think one thing I want to go back to though, we talked about wide receiver switching teams. You and I have seen the numbers. It's not good, right? Usually you see a dip, OBJ was not immune, DeAndre Hopkins and Stefon Diggs absolutely bucked the trend.
Yes.
But they went to Kyler Murray and then the other guy went to Josh Allen, who had, one of the best progressions we've ever seen and was an MVP candidate, right? So I think it's a little bit different. If we look at Kenny Golladay, this is one that I've been really fighting because I think he's a good receiver. I think he's a very good receiver and he's proven it in his time in the NFL. But I do not think he's as good as Stefon Diggs. I don't think he's as good as DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think that the New York Giants organization, I know that the New York Giants organization is not as good as the Buffalo Bills front office and coaching. I know that Jason Garrett's an idiot, right? And I know that I don't expect Daniel Jones to take the same leap that Josh Allen did. So knowing all of those things, it's very hard for me to buy into Kenny Golladay wide receiver one season. What are your thoughts on that front? Like, do you think he's another guy that bucks the wide receiver switching teams trend, or do you think he probably falls in line with the rest of the crowd and we kind of see some disappointing seasons from him?
I love your analysis, knowing that first of all, that you've already said, are we going to be biased in terms of seeing things last year, such as Josh Allen's leap, such as Diggs and Hopkins changing teams, and it did work out? Is that going to bias us not to say, oh, Daniel Jones to the moon, because now he's got one capable receiver. He has capable receivers. That was rude. He has a stud wide receiver one that he's going to just. I am in complete agreement. I'm loving this. I agree with everything you're saying. This makes it easy. Maybe we got to get one more.
Yeah, we got to get some discourse going. Don't worry,
but no, I'm the same way. I'm like, especially if I still know he's got that name value, Golladay. He still has that name value where, like, in my home leagues, people are gonna be taking him way too early for me to hop on that. So I won't have many shares of him.
Yeah, look, the only positive. Not the only, but one of the positives is obviously he goes to a team where it's wide open for him to take that lead wide receiver role, right? And also Daniel Jones, being bad at many things. The list of things that Daniel Jones is bad at is long, much longer than my receipts when I go to like Walgreens. But the one good thing is Daniel Jones is pretty proficient in the deep game. Kenny Golladay is pretty good in the deep passing game. So that fit kind of seems to work pretty well for me. But really that's a saving grace. His price isn't like astronomical yet, especially in the dynasty space. He's a little bit on the older side. But I think for me, the best time to acquire Kenny Golladay will be after the season, when he had kind of like when Allen Robinson first switched teams, went to Chicago Bears. I think like it's a very similar situation, right? He's going to a bad team with a bad quarterback, and Allen Robinson is a superior wide receiver to Kenny Golladay to me. But he had a bad season, and then he bounced back the second year. So buying wide receivers after the dip, after their first season disappointment, is usually the path I would go. And I would recommend to all those out there to hold pause on a Kenny Golladay, buying spree right now, and kind of just wait a little bit and try and acquire him after this season, after he's a little bit of a disappointment. All right. I want to talk a little bit about processes. So film and analytics battles. I ask this to every single guest I come on because I bring on film people, I bring on analytics people, I bring on blends of both. But people are always on Twitter, the fucking just yapping at each other, just yapping. Like, I hate you, you're stupid, blah, blah, blah. Numbers don't make sense. Film is stupid, yada, yada, yada. I think, personally, both are important. I suck at film, so I tend to lean the number side. Do you look at film at all? I know I'm not going to try and pronounce your last names because I'm going to butcher it, but I know Kate and Michelle do, focus on film. So I'm sure, you guys in your group chats always talk about that stuff like that. Have they influenced you to get into the film side? Do you incorporate that in your process? If not, why not? If so, how do you do so as a non-pro scout? Because there's only one of those. That's me. For those of you out there that aren't pro scouts, how do you approach the game like that?
I'm changing my bio to non-pro scout in like 10 minutes here. When I definitely was all numbers before this past year. I
Mhm.
think joining fantasy Twitter and just I obviously was lurking on my personal account in fantasy Twitter before I had made my official account. So
Uh-huh.
I've seen all the film versus analytics talk, but I never got too much into film. Or rookies for that matter. And this year, just with getting into dynasty and all that, I definitely reapproached and looked at a lot more film.
Mhm.
I do lean the analytics and numbers, but
Mhm.
film gets me too excited sometimes because, for example, this is not a rookie example, but like Jonnu Smith before he signed with the Pats.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I would love to have him on the Bills. And then I started watching way too much film. I got way too excited, and then he goes to the freaking Patriots, and I'm like, this is why I don't watch film because I get too excited. But you need that perfect balance. That's of my opinion. You need that perfect balance because watching that gave me a different viewpoint on Johnny, and I still think he's gonna like that. Makes me his talent. What
Mhm.
I saw there, plus with the numbers, it makes me think he's gonna be the tight end for the Patriots and the money as well. But a lot of people are arguing Hunter Henry. I think John was a better all around, more athletic and more talented tight end there. So that kind of helped me in that type of approach. But I do
Mhm.
lean analytics
I
there.
kind of like that, like it's like I think that my problem and my strife with my fellow pro scout compatriots is when they get in on a player, they get too excited and they're like the
Yeah.
numbers be damned. Like I don't care if this guy didn't
Yes,
produce in college.
exactly.
I don't care about any of that stuff. I feel like numbers are a really good like guide rail, right? Like the way I approach numbers is it's not like, hey, this guy has a better breakout age. He is absolutely my wide receiver one. If that was the case, Rashad Bateman would be my wide receiver one, right? Jamar Chase wouldn't be my wide receiver one. But I think working within the guardrails, what numbers provide you is super helpful to then layer on the film, right? And I think a
Absolutely.
lot of film people can really benefit from that. And I tell this to film guys that come on my show all the time. I'm like, yo, listen, if you're a film guy and you understand numbers, I want nothing to do with you because I can't beat you because I don't understand film, right? But the people that are easiest to beat are the ones that just rely on film and they get in. There's like, I'm just gonna get my guy, and they just bet on their own talent evaluation. And truth be told, like everyone sucks at talent evaluation. I don't care who you are. The best talent evaluators are bad because what are you're touting like a 40% hit rate, right? So even the best are missing like coin flips. So from that perspective, like having the numbers to help you guide you is like really really important. So I kind of like that approach as well. It's very similar to me. I kind of start with this pool of players when it comes to rookies, right? And I say, based on the number guardrails that I have, who am I eliminating from this sample? And then within that sample, I'm like, okay, well, let's talk to my film compatriots. Like, who's good? Like, if this guy, the numbers tell me this guy's a stud. What don't you like about him? And then that's kind of like the path that I flow down. So it sounds like, you kind of do a similar thing, which is pretty cool. As you get more into it, I'm sure Kate and Michelle will influence you more to watch more and more film. But yeah, it's important to kind of understand, like, when I watch film, I get hyped too, man. I pull up a freaking YouTube highlight of Just Bomb Productions, remix with
Yes.
DMX, Jalen Waddle doing punt returns. I'm like, dude, I'm drafting this guy ahead of everybody. That's it. I don't care. I'm
Like,
drafting
look how
101.
fast he is. He's gonna be a stud. He's so
Yeah.
fast. Like,
Yeah. Putting future, grocery workers and fitness trainers, breaking their ankles, not knowing that, these guys won't make the NFL. And that's what film doesn't provide you, right? So it's important to have
yeah.
both. I'm glad you're starting with a balanced approach. So that's good to see. I want to talk a little bit about, dynasty startups. You're new to dynasty game, but you've done a couple. I've done a couple now, and I'm seeing what types of value I like. But in your opinion, what is the best value group? So between what quarterback, tight end, wide receiver in super flex dynasty drafts, what is the best value group that you've seen so far?
It's usually wide receiver because another part I hate of dynasty though is, and I think you put it in the show sheet, like the quarterbacks all going in the first 12 picks, but it's like if just one person didn't do that, we could all have a really good time, a better time. So I think that wide receivers have seen some of the best value that you already talked about it before. Stefon Diggs in the fifth. I'm sure Keenan Allen's going way too late too. And these people, a lot of people that I've been playing with, especially if they're analysts or whatever you want to call each other, just are grabbing certain running backs or certain quarterbacks so early, and they're letting people that are older, wide receivers that are older, just completely fall way
Yeah.
too far. So that's been the most value that I've seen there. And even I really never see value for quarterbacks because
Never.
In Superflex, you're like, you can't really wait. You really can't, because then
Oh,
you're gonna get
I
stuck
beg
with
to differ. So this is where we'll have some discourse.
Oh, all right,
I beg to
yes.
differ.
Okay.
So look, I'm in 2 drafts right now, and where one of them I didn't draft a quarterback until like the 11th or 12th round. Another one I'm in like the 7th round, and I still don't have a quarterback. Mostly because I like to trade back and get future rookie picks and do a productive struggle. And I was gonna do a productive struggle. This is a league with like John Bauer, Mitch, and like a couple other folks in the industry. And it's just been interesting because like quarterbacks are flying off the board, right? Like Mitch took Carson Wentz in like the 3rd round. John took Tom
Oh,
Brady
wow.
in the 4th, right? And at that time, guys like Stefon Diggs, Devontae Adams, they were also on the board. So for me, it's like I'm not going to take a quarterback and reach because I feel like quarterbacks are drying up. One, because I just have a very high tolerance for risk and pain. Um, like if I leave this draft with no quarterbacks, that's totally okay with me because it's still June and I can kind of make moves later
Yes.
on. But here's my philosophy, or my not my philosophy, my hypothesis for this year, because I used to like do quarterbacks early as well, but that was back like last year when I found guys like Ryan Tannehill in like the fourth round, guys like Kirk Cousins in the 6th, right? Matt Ryan in the 7th and 8th. That's gone now, so I'm no longer doing that, and instead I'm opting for Mike Evans in the 7th. I'm opting for Michael Thomas in the 5th, and the reason why I'm doing that is because between now and June, who do I think the value increase is going to be greater for? Do I think Mike Evans is going to increase in value more, or do I think Tom Brady is going to increase in value more?
Exactly.
Do I think Carson Wentz is going to increase in value more, or even halfway through the season after we've seen, the meltdown that Carson Wentz had last year? I understand he's on a better team. I'm not willing to bet on him. I'll let someone else take that shot, because if he stinks, if he goes to the Colts and he starts off slow, that value will be unrecoverable. You will not be able to trade him for anything. But Mike Evans, on the other hand, for example, which is a guy who I really like picking up in recent drafts, like if he goes, like last year he was hurt, right? He had hamstring injuries. If he goes and blows up, second year with Tom Brady, goes out and puts up a couple 30, 40 burgers, which he's capable of, I can trade him for another quarterback that's not doing as good. So that's my philosophy. I'm fine with fading the quarterbacks this year and going a little bit of zero QB. Even if it means like I might not be able to win year one, and that's fine, but I'm going to play the value game and accumulate some rookie picks and try and plug it that way. So I don't know if this is going to work. That's just my hypothesis. I adjust my draft strategy every year based on what I see in terms of trends. But that's where the whole, if everyone reaches, you have to reach. I'm like, nah, actually, I'm just going to sit here and just collect value and see what happens.
Well, at that point, I do agree with you there, and you gave some absolutely wonderful insight there. If you're looking at Tom Brady, and everyone can be like, "Well, he's got 4 more years." Okay, we don't know. So
Yeah.
you're completely right. If you've already waited that long, and those are really your only quarterback options, I can understand why you're taking somebody with much higher value. And the wide receivers got a long shelf life as well as a quarterback, so it's not like you're taking a bad running back in that range or anything like that. But who are you going after then?
Yeah,
Are you
so
looking
I'll
at
say
rookies?
hopefully no one in my league actually watches this
Oh,
episode, but rookies are gone. Like Trey Lance, Justin Fields, they went in like the 1st round or like 2nd round or something.
wow.
Zach Wilson, who I was considering,
Yeah.
went in like the 3rd, so I traded back, so I couldn't get him, which is fine. But
Wow.
what I'm doing is like, look, if I don't get any quarterbacks, that means I'm probably not going to place very well this year, and that's okay because I try and build my teams pretty young. So like I started with like Barkley, DK Metcalf, and Brandon Ayuk, right? So I have a couple years of runway, and I'll just draft like next year's rookie. So that's usually what I do. But
Okay.
in terms of like late targets, like I'll take a shot on a Ben Roethlisberger. I'll take a shot on a Cam Newton.
Yeah.
Guys who people are
Sounds
assuming.
serviceable.
Some people who are assuming they've already lost their jobs. I'll take a shot on Jameis Winston. I'll take a shot on even Taysom Hill, who I hate. I hate Taysom Hill, but at the cost that he's going. In the other draft where I didn't draft the quarterback till 11th round, my quarterbacks are Ben Roethlisberger, Cam Newton, and Taysom Hill, and we'll kind of see what happens there. But I can also make some trades. So, look, to me, like my overarching philosophy always has been be water. Like Bruce Lee is my
Yes.
hero. He's a fucking legend. So his be water quote lives within me in Dynasty in all things that I do. But I just like to go with the flow and see what happens, especially in June. I never draft for need in June because I have 2 to 3 months to trade for need. And all I'm doing in June is saying, do I think this player's value will increase between now and like September, October, November? That's the only question I'm asking. when I'm drafting in June. So that's kind of my approach. But everyone has their own different approaches. Everyone loves quarterback. Everyone's like, no, you gotta reach for quarterback. The other thing with quarterback is this: we are really bad at determining quarterback finishes in the season. Like every year you go back and look at the top 10 quarterbacks ADP versus where they finish. It's a fucking Jordan McNamara about this. It's a fucking random thing. Nobody knows. Like, so why would you put all your eggs in a basket in the position where we know the least amount about? Give me the shots on wide receiver. Give me the shots on running backs where we have a pretty damn good idea that Mike Evans is not a bum. Like, we have a pretty damn good idea that Keenan Allen's a stud, right? So I'm going to bet on those types of guys rather than betting on a Daniel Jones, a Carson Wentz, a 42-year-old Tom Brady, or 43-year-old Tom Brady, who I love. Tom Brady is a GOAT, right? But it just doesn't make sense to me to put your talent evaluation in the bucket of assets where we have the least amount of accuracy, right? So that's really where I'm coming from in this whole thing.
Absolutely, too. With rookie quarterbacks, that's the hit rate is we can think Trevor Lawrence is a sure done deal, 101 in rookie drafts, but the hit rate on evaluating if they're going to be successful, like you already said, is super difficult. So I'm not saying I wouldn't take a rookie quarterback, but there's many more pieces that, like you already said, are valuable, and they've already shown they can have success in the NFL versus taking such a big chance on those other players.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. But we're in peak training camp hype season now. I mean, you're new, you're a bit newer. So I don't know if you were here last season or no. Was last season or 2 seasons ago for Darwin Thompson hype season? Darwin Thompson reached highs that you would never have guessed. Like he was going in the 6th or 7th round of redraft leagues. People were trading first round rookie picks for him. Like, I mean, people were like, oh, look at this guy's, like, there's a picture that came out with his like quads, and there's another video of I think preseason where he like hurdled the dude, and they're like, yo, this guy is the next Kareem Hunt. That was the thing. So I tweeted out in a joking manner, like, who's going to be the next Darwin Thompson season of this season, because it happens every single year. So I'm curious though, there's probably a good balance between, taking in some of the information and then, ignoring some of it. But what I for the most part ignore it because most of it is fluff. I tend to focus on the really negative news. But what do you like? What's your approach to training camp hype season?
I just tweeted this the other day because I was listening to a Fantasy Footballers episode, and Jason was like, you know what? I'm just going to tell you, here's some truth about off-season hype and OTAs and things. If you see news and you like it, you're going to believe it. Do you not like the news? Then you're just gonna be like, nah, and you keep scrolling. But if you see, like I saw, as an example, I'm not very high on J.K. Dobbins this year. Dynasty, I'm higher on him than redraft, but I'm not too high on him just because his volume's always going to be capped. That's just what I'm thinking. And the season that Ingram had a top 10 finish, he needed like 15 touchdowns to do it.
Yeah.
And people seem to be ignoring that. But regardless, I saw news that was like, Washington wants to get Antonio Gibson more involved in the passing game. And I'm like, yeah, honey, like Gibby's my guy. Love it. And we already assume that, right? The same news comes out from the Ravens. Like Dobbins, they're putting an emphasis on getting Dobbins involved in the passing game. Like, yeah, right, dude. Yeah, right. I'll believe it when I see it. But you can't, it's hard to, after I heard that from Jason, I'm like, I need to really train my brain to not be as biased, and like you said, just kind of ignore just stay in the middle. Don't get too excited, don't get too down, just like you said, stay water, and kind of ignore the super hype.
I mean, it's too true. I mean, we all do it. Like, I mean, I do it. I tweeted jokingly, but I'm like, dude, I'm only looking to confirm my priors. That's my only process. If it agrees with me, I'm good. If it doesn't, I tweet in a joking manner, but sometimes that happens, right? But for me, like, actions will always speak louder than words, right? So right now, every single team has had the best draft ever. Every single team got a steal with their draft pick. Every single team has a future Hall of Famer, right? But you just gotta try and parse that out a little bit. And the true data points for me is gonna be if week after week we see coaches come out and say like, yo, this guy's gonna have a role, this guy's gonna have a role, someone that we didn't expect. I'm more willing to kind of like, get in on that. If it's an undrafted free agent, if they're gonna make the team, that's the stuff that I'll pay attention to. Or conversely, if they're like, yo, this guy is like, he's going to be in a committee, or they say something negative. Anything negative is amplified 10 times because every beat reporter is incentivized to say positive things because that's how they get in the locker room. Nobody's going to fucking talk to you if you shit on the team the entire time, right? So, and then coaches, obviously want to be positive. They're not going to be like, our team fucking sucks. Like, these players suck. They're not going to be like, oh yeah, we drafted a rookie.
Except for Urban.
Yeah, except for Urban. But for veterans, they're not going to be like, oh yeah, we just we drafted a rookie running back, so all the veterans are useless now. They're not going to say that, right? Because you're not going to lose the locker room. So I try and really try and just block most of that out and wait to see like preseason, because preseason will show you some snap usage in the first team snaps. So that will be useful. But for the most part, personally, I don't. I just have fun with training camp hype season. I don't really use it at all in any of my analysis. And my advice is for most people to do the same. But I understand it's hard. I understand that it's all we got. It's all we got. This is all we got. It's all we got. It's what we need. So I kind of understand a little bit. So I want to get into some player analysis. I read through some of your articles. You had one article on the football guys where you talked about, like, broke down the AFC. I always fucking lose East, West, North, whatever. AFC with the Titans and the Colts, and you had the Titans and Colts as one of your top teams. I wasn't surprised, but like I said, I have big reservations on Carson Wentz, and I think a lot of people look back and say, look, this guy was an MVP candidate before he went down. I fully agree with you, right? But just like we've never seen the Josh Allen progression, we have never seen a quarterback meltdown in the way that Carson Wentz did in his fucking prime, like as a 27-year-old quarterback. I understand they had injuries. I understand he didn't have great weapons, all that stuff, but he was quite literally one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, right? So, I have hesitations about putting a team that good with a quarterback that bad. Like, I don't think it's a stretch to say that Phillip Rivers last season was better than Carson Wentz. I think Phillip Rivers was actually pretty decent last year, right?
Yeah.
And do I think Carson Wentz will be better than Phillip Rivers? Did the Colts offensive situation create the situation for Phillip Rivers to succeed? Because everyone thought Phillip Rivers was washed as well. I could maybe see that. I'm curious to get your thoughts on that, on Carson Wentz. Are you a believer? Are you cautiously optimistic? What do you like? What don't you like about him going to the Colts?
I think I'm kind of in the middle, and I'll evaluate where he's falling. Like you said, stay water. If he's falling, take a shot on him. I'm definitely willing to. And I'm in the middle. I know that last season that he was with Frank Reich in 2017, he was the QB3 in fantasy. He missed 3 games. He had 0 rushing touchdowns that season. Mm-hmm. So obviously his production dropped.
He had 0 rushing touchdowns that season? That's surprising, because I thought he was rushing quite a bit.
That's what my notes say from my intern, who is also myself. So hopefully that's correct.
I trust you.
But I mean, also I've put this in my Jalen Hurts article. The Eagles were on their 13th offensive line by the time
a lot of injuries.
Hurts was in his second game. So
absolutely.
I mean, and Wentz was sacked the most in the league. I mean, that was horrible. Mm-hmm. That was a very concerning.
Let's pause there 1 second. Do you are you a subscriber to sacks being a quarterback stat or an offensive line stat?
I'm in the middle there too, because if you're someone that's mobile like Josh Allen, he's taking less sacks now, but like back in his rookie and sophomore season, he would just make bad decisions. Mm-hmm. But if your O-line is on their 13th, freaking it's got to be both. Though that definitely scared me about Wentz. That is probably why I'm cautiously optimistic on him for this year. But I mean, if he's going to be your QB2 in Superflex, if he's going to be a very large value in redraft, why not take the shot? I'm in the agreement that everyone thought Phillip Rivers was going to be washed last year. And he was perfectly serviceable, and he took them to the playoffs. The Colts have a fantastic front office, fantastic coaching staff. Mm-hmm. I just don't see them like letting Wentz fall on his face like the Eagles did. And he probably had his confidence rocked there when they drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round. I mean, all of that is a mental game as well.
That's the other thing. I do not like weak-minded people, and everything Carson Wentz has done has shown me he's kind of a bitch. And aside from Aaron Rodgers, who's also a bitch, but a Hall of Famer and extremely talented, I think that aspect is kind of like that kind of like, I have no like data to support this or anything like that, right? But it's like the game is mental, right? Especially for quarterback, it's played between the ears. And you look at guys, it's proven. Like you look at guys like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. These are not athletic guys. These are not incredible talents. They are cerebral minds who have a killer instinct. And I don't know if Carson Wentz had that. Like if a second round quarterback like shocks your confidence that much, and he's kind of like playing the blame game, and there's a lot of reports coming out that he's kind of like a little bit selfish. And maybe he's a good guy. I don't know. Like these are unsubstantiated reports, so I can't like assassinate this guy's character. But to me, it just seems like he's a little bit weak-minded. And that's on my other pause. It's like Philip Rivers, for all that we can say about him, we
Oh,
could never say that he was weak-minded. This guy was a freaking
he's a
warrior.
savage. You see
Yeah.
those videos on like Bleacher Report and all that of him talking smack? I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, exactly. So he's a savage. I don't know if Carson Wentz is that. Look, I wish him the best. I've personally diversified him off of my teams because I do not want to wait and see what happens. But he could definitely make a comeback, right? This is the best situation that he's been in since his MVP season.
Yeah.
Granted, they don't really have great weapons outside of a 32-year-old T.Y. Hilton. Does he still have juice in the tank? Maybe. Michael Pittman, I'm not that high on. Here's the problem with Wentz though. Like he was awful last year in the short to intermediate. That's why he totally tanked Sanders' value. So if I'm looking at guys like Pittman and Paris Campbell, who people are really really in on, and Jonathan Taylor, I'm also a little bit concerned in the receiving game. I'm like a little bit like, man, like he's not good where they have the weapons, and they don't have the weapons where he's good. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit iffy for me, but
JT is going so high. I mean, he's going at his peak value in all formats.
Yeah, I will not tolerate any JT slander on this channel. Just so I'm kidding.
Oh
I'm kidding.
no, the
I'm
talent,
kidding.
he's incredible. I just worry that all like his value right now is peak.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I'm a little bit concerned, especially on the redraft side, in terms of his target volume because of Carson Wentz. Like Philip Rivers was much better, in that respect of the game, and Jonathan Taylor is a much better receiver than people give him credit for. But Carson Wentz is just straight up awful. The amount of times I saw him throw a fucking ball into the dirt when trying to dump it off in the flat to Miles Sanders, like tilted me into oblivion because I had so much Miles Sanders. I'm like, dude, he's right there. Just throw that 5-yard pass. He's right there. You don't have to sail it over his head. But anyways, enough about Carson Wentz. You mentioned the other guy who, like I said, this is one of the first articles I read that you wrote. But Jalen Hurts. For those of you guys that haven't read it, I will link it in the YouTube comments below. I think it was pretty well written. I was a big fan of Jalen Hurts. Coming back out of college, like again, this goes to the mental aspect, right? There's really hard for us as fantasy players to know the mental makeup of a player. So I look for indicators, right? You look at Jalen Hurts. He was a proven winner in college, right? National champion who got basically booted for a freshman because they're like, yo, fuck you. We got Tua Tagovailoa now. And then when Tua went down, he came back on and then saved them in the college football playoffs. And they went to Oklahoma, was a Heisman candidate. So that shows me this is a strong mental makeup player, but also he's a fucking baller in college, right? He could run, he could pass. So I was big in on Jalen Hurts last year. I drafted him in many rookie drafts in the late second to third. So I had a lot of Jalen Hurts shares. I'm a little bit more hesitant now on his price in Dynasty and where he's gone, especially having faded the draft. And it's clear that he's going to be the guy. Maybe walk us through some of your key highlights from that article, why you were so in on Jalen Hurts from the numbers perspective. And then I would like to hear your thoughts on how you think he's being valued right now. He's in like that low end QB1, so like QB10 to QB12 range in terms of valuation. Is that too high for you? Are you in? Are you out? What are some of the risks you see going forward?
Yeah, I'll start with the article stuff. Some of the points I hit on there is, we all know his surface level box score. That's ugly. That was ugly, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone will just harp on his completion percentage of, I think it was 52 overall, 52%. 46% of his passing attempts were thrown 10 or more yards down the field. That was the highest rate in the NFL last year. So that's obviously with less dinking and dunking, he's not going to have as good as he's going to have a subpar completion percentage. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to, again, go on the Josh Allen side, but I think someone like Hurts can work on that, the short to intermediate game for this upcoming season. I don't think we're going to see that as much. Again, we already mentioned they were on their 13th different offensive line configuration by his second start. He took 6 sacks alone in that game. I think it was against Arizona last year. I mean, he had that atrocious offensive line. One stat I love is we'll go back to Wentz here, right? Wentz versus Hurts passing and rushing. Hurts elevated the entire team, and we already know the team was doo-doo, for lack of better words. So in 12 games when Wentz was at the helm, the Eagles were 14th in total rushing yards per game and 29th in total yards per game. When Hurts took over, they jumped to 4th in rushing yards, 1st in total yards per game, which is absurd. I know they had a couple of easier opponents, but I mean, he elevated the entire team. The thing I love most about him is his ceiling. I like to go for a quarterback that has a rushing aspect to them because you're always going to get better value at that, but his ceiling is outrageous with the rushing and passing. If he just improves on the passing, he had 37.8 total points in week 15 against the Cardinals. That was the sixth highest single game fantasy point total from last year. I mean, you want that type of ceiling in your lineup every week if you can get it.
Mm-hmm.
What else did I say in there? I think it was last point, new quarterbacks coach, Brian Johnson. He developed Kyle Trask, who was a Heisman Trophy finalist. He was the offensive coordinator for the Gators. They were one of the country's top passing offenses in 2020. He worked with Dak Prescott at Mississippi State. I mean,
oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
I like to look at not only what the player did beforehand, but the coaches that are surrounding him, right? And it is a little bit of a weird situation with all the new things going on, the new coaching staff and stuff. But like you said, he's the mental aspect. I love that. And you see that he's a hard worker. I hate keep bringing it back to Josh Allen, but he embraced the whole city. He embraced the fan base. He embraced what it was to be a Buffalo Bill. I feel like I'm seeing Hurts do the same thing. And Philly's not an easy place to play.
Yeah.
That fan base is ruthless sometimes. So I do believe in him. Back to the value. In Dynasty, I'm much lower on him because they have so many first round picks now. We saw what happened in the draft. They have a lot of picks next year that if he does fall on his face, they could easily just draft another quarterback for the future. Yeah. He was the second round draft cap. It's not as high as draft capital as, a lot of the other quarterbacks. So Dynasty worries me a little bit. And if he's going much too high there, it's a little rich for my like. I'm not going to reach for him in Dynasty. I think for redraft, he's going to be a good value just because you're focusing on this year alone.
Yeah.
Because he could be astronomically. I have him as top 5. I really do believe in him for the season. But
yeah, I mean, his floor is top. If he starts a 16-game season, his floor is top 10. So
absolutely,
top 5 is absolutely not unrealistic. I mean, I think I was very much in on Jalen Hurts before the draft, because before the draft, hysteria was there. Like, oh my God, like they're trading up, they're trading down, they're gonna draft so and so, they're gonna move up, they're gonna do this. None of that happened. They opted for getting wide receiver, but all the hysteria was there, and he was falling into like that mid QB2 range. And at that cost, it's like all you're doing is making a bet. Do they draft someone, and does Jalen Hurts start? If Jalen Hurts starts, you're getting a top 10 quarterback no matter what, guaranteed. If he starts all 16 games, you're getting that. Even if he plays bad, you're getting a top 10 quarterback, right? But now, the decision is like, if he plays bad, your value disappears. But if he plays good, then you're like, is this Lamar Jackson again? Then you're like, you're kind of into the stratosphere, right? So it's a very, very interesting thing where now it's like, now it kind of just really depends on the team. And even before the draft, I said this, I was like, look, if you're a contender, right, you should swing on a Jalen Hurts because the upside is massive. And if you're contending, like the downside doesn't really kill you. If you're a rebuilder, you got to get out on him because you're trying to accumulate value over time. But it's a super interesting spot we're in now, where it's like now people are like, okay, finally, now that we see the data, like I'm ready to go in on him. And it's like, well, it's too fucking late because now you got to pay up. You got to pony up the price. And I've been seeing him going pretty early in a lot of my quarterback drafts. He's going like top 10. So at that price, maybe a little bit too rich for me, but I'm rooting for the guy. I really hope he succeeds. As soon as he got the start, I was like, fuck yeah, like Carson Wentz stinks. Like, let's see what this dude can do. And I do think he's a little bit unfairly judged on the completion side, right? You look at raw completions, I get it. It's not that good. It's like 52%, right? But this guy was only throwing deep. That's all he was doing. There was no short game. He was scrambling and just looking for bombs. And that is a coaching point because you cannot do that in the NFL. But if you look at his completion percentage based on his ADOT, it's like pretty in line with what you would expect, right? And it's the same knock that people have with Lamar Jackson. Like they're like, oh, Lamar Jackson can pass. But if you look at Lamar Jackson's completion rate adjusted for ADOT, it's very much in line with what you would expect. So these are both guys that are, I think, I'm not saying they're superior passers. I'm not even saying they're like top 15 passers in the league, but they're at least average and they have room to grow. So I think it's always interesting for me because you want to bet on players that have room to grow, right? When people knock players for stuff, I kind of look at it a different way. It's like, is that an area where that player can grow? If it is, that's good because it means that their value is not capped yet and they have much room to ascend. But versus someone else where it's like someone else has been in the league like 5-7 years, like a Carson Wentz, for example, does he have much room for improvement? maybe, I don't know. But I'm not betting on it, right? So that's a really cool difference. And I'm glad you're in on Jalen Hurts. Like, we can all root for Jalen Hurts together in this upcoming season. I hope he has a Josh Allen-esque ascension. Probably not to that degree, but some form of that. And if he does, I think Philly fans will get behind him. I think fantasy gamers will love having him in. Personally, I'm going to love having him on my teams because he's going to be a potential league winner, especially for redraft leagues, like you said. So, yeah, good to see that on the Jalen Hurts hype train that we're together on that. I want to talk a little bit more about your Bills, though. We talked about Josh Allen. He is going as a quarterback, too. Okay, he's going back as a quarterback, too. And I do not mean to disrespect Josh Allen at all because he's already dunked on me and clowned me to the nth degree. And he's proven that I'm an idiot and he knows what he's doing. But some people are taking him as a quarterback 1 over Patrick Mahomes. Do you think at his current cost of even quarterback 2, do you think he can return that type of value to fantasy gamers? Or are you a little bit more hesitant? Because I feel like he had a career year. I'm not sure if he will replicate that going forward. I have my hesitancies, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts because they still have really good offense. They, freaking the OZ came out and said, we're going to keep passing it because the running back freaking stink. But, from that perspective, do you think Josh Allen can be a good pick at quarterback 2 still?
I do. And of course I have a little bit of bias, but he's going to get a fat payday sometime soon.
No, he's going to get a big bank. He's going to make a bank.
He's not going anywhere. You've got the reassurance of that. He's not going anywhere. He's going to be the Bills quarterback for a long, long time. In terms of can he replicate, I'm sure you've seen the stats on if a quarterback finishes as the QB1, it's I think only Drew Brees and maybe Aaron Rodgers have done it. Finished on back-to-back seasons as the QB1. It's just very difficult. And I remember when Mahomes had his astronomical season, I think he finished as quarterback 8 the following season.
Yeah.
So it's very, we've already hit on this, the quarterback evaluating that stuff is so volatile. But I think that you're making a good investment with him because you're always going to have that rushing floor. I don't think they're ever, and he scores so many rushing touchdowns. They didn't invest in a running back. If they do next year, I just don't see them going away from the air raid offense. Yeah. I don't see them going away from that. It worked for them. They're not just gonna be like, okay, we're going to just run the ball now and go back to the Bills of the past. Yeah. I still think it's a good value though. Would I take somebody else over him? Like a Dak Prescott? Because their defense is much, much worse. And I don't really ever see them investing. They're going to need to invest over time there, right? He's going to have to chuck the ball for a couple more years down the line.
Look, it's Jerry World. They're not going to do the right thing. I mean, if there's one thing that you can bet on, it's Jerry World doing the suboptimal approach. It's guaranteed. So
absolutely. I don't know. Would you take, I heard your hesitancy. Who are you taking over Josh?
Personally, I don't ever draft in that zone. Okay. I'm out of the first round. But if I had to choose, I have Lamar Jackson ahead of Josh Allen. And I know it's probably not a popular opinion, but for fantasy purposes, Lamar Jackson is the best rushing quarterback we've ever seen. That's in my opinion. He doesn't have production of a Cam Newton yet. He doesn't have, he hasn't gotten there, but given the time that he's played, I think he will be. This is a quarterback that gives you 1,000 yards rushing floor every year.
Guaranteed.
So, and if he has a good spike in touchdowns, they add a bunch of weapons around him. I think it's going to be a good offense. Look, I think it's a great debate to have, but I have them all in the same tier, so it doesn't really matter to me because I have Kyler Murray as my quarterback too. Actually, I think he's a better passer than Josh Allen. I also think he's a better rusher, but it's a great debate to have. But personally, I would much rather just trade back and take the cheaper guy because I don't know. I can't say with confidence that someone's going to finish ahead of the other. But I think the other point that you made, which is a good one, is he doesn't necessarily have to finish as the quarterback 2, right, to return value. Just like how drafting Patrick Mahomes, even though he finished as the quarterback 8 and the quarterback 2 or 3, he didn't finish the quarterback 1. That's not a bad move because his floor is so high, right? It's like prime Aaron Rodgers. He didn't finish quarterback 1 back to back, but he was a top 5 quarterback every single year for 3 or 4 years, right? So I think that's what I know Mahomes can give me, or I feel very confident Mahomes can give me. I'm not sure Josh Allen can give me, but I can see it. I can see the case. I think he's less I would say he's less bulletproof than someone like a Mahomes. I think someone, defenses have had, a year to kind of figure him out, and his toolbox is a little bit more limited than a Patrick Mahomes. So let's see what they draw up to kind of stop him. And, the running game, like I said, is non-existent. Devin Singletary stinks, Dak Moss stinks. So let's get into that a little bit. I don't want to, I'm going to shit on your little backfield a little bit, but they were just not
Please
Not
do.
very good. And I was very surprised that they did not get like a Chris Carson. I thought for sure Buffalo Bills were going to go out there and grab a Chris Carson because he just seems like he fits so well. He's a great, one first and second down grinder. He'll be efficient enough, and he'll give you that goal line presence that you need. So you don't need running back one, Josh Allen, running it in every single time. So I was surprised they didn't have any veteran presence. What is your outlook on the Bills running back field? Are you in at at cost? Because I think Zach Moss is not very good, but at his current cost, he's kind of palatable. I'm kind of like okay with his cost, or I might grab a couple of shares. But curious to hear your thoughts. Who's a better running back there? Are you getting any of them? Do you think they're going to add someone? What are your thoughts on the backfield as a whole?
I wish they added Chris Carson. That's one of the offseason moves I was just begging for, but it seems he wanted to stay a Seahawk, so that's fine. I'll still be drafting Chris all over the place. I love him. I am shocked they didn't take a running back in the draft, though. I thought the whole time that Brandon Mee would never pull the trigger on a first round running back. So I was like, maybe they will, probably not.
Mhm.
I am shocked they only added, Breida, right?
Yeah.
He's got the speed, but I don't know we haven't really seen him do much.
No, not
recently.
really.
I don't think he's going to be that involved. I think he's just a depth piece. And I personally am not going to have many shares of either of these running backs for the Bills, because in redraft and even sometimes in dynasty, they're just in this dead zone of I'd rather take value in so many other places than be like, oh, Moss could be a low end RB2, but we don't even know Allen's going to continue vulturing those touchdowns, and I just don't see them having the spectacular season like we've already discussed. They're not going to go away from the air raid offense. I do think Moss will be much better this year, and I think we know who Singletary is already. We know his skill set and seen what he's done. I think he's the pass catching back, but I think he's going to be more phased out with Moss having, not struggling with his injuries. I think he had a toe injury or foot injury last year. He'll definitely be better for us. For fantasy purposes, I just don't want to invest. There's a lot more value around where those guys are going.
Yeah, the case for Zach Moss is that has the ability to take over the pass catching role. I don't know why they've been using Singletary. Singletary's awful in the receiving game. Just like bottom of the barrel bad efficiency wise. I don't like Zach Moss, but I know he's better than Devin Singletary. So you can make a case from there. And also, the Bills would be a high scoring offense, right? So usually you want running backs if you want a running back in a committee, the profile is you want a running back on a high scoring offense that can catch passes and has goal line involvement, right? Those are the boxes you're looking to check. And Moss has the potential to check some of those boxes. Problem is Josh Allen's the best running back on the team, so he's going to take the goal line carries. But if he can work out a spot in the receiving game, I think it'll be a little bit more appealing, because that will be a good scoring offense. They're the best team, right, in the AFC in their division, so they're going to be scoring a lot. So I think I do like that aspect of it. But yeah, like you said, it's really tough to get on the train there. But we'll see where the values shake out. I think 0 RB drafters will be all over that, because they love touting shady running backs in June. So I'm sure they'll be all over Zach Moss going into there. So we'll see what happens. The other thing I want to talk about, Julio Jones to the Titans. You covered the Titans as well in your AFC breakdown. What are your thoughts about that move? Is that good for people involved? What do you think about Julio Jones? What does he do to Adrian Brown? What does he do to Derrick Henry? What does he do to Ryan Tannehill?
Well, he ruined my Ferkser shares and my guy take here.
Oh, you're a Ferkser. You're a Ferkser truther. Okay.
His value was just unbelievable. Nobody's drafting him, and I'm like, who's Tannehill gonna pass to? He lost so many people.
Well,
so I wasn't on him.
The next guy. That's who's in a draft to. Because here, I look. This is the issue with Ferkser, and I get it. You other smart people, you guys have been on Ferkser. I didn't even rank Ferkser, to be honest with you, in my dynasty ranks. I'm like, I don't really care about this guy.
Dynasty, you're right. Dynasty, really who knows? They could draft another guy. You're completely right. Dynasty. Sorry
it's
about that.
Yeah, it's like when you're in redraft, like whatever, man. Like you take your shot on tight end. If they don't work out, you drop them. But in like dynasty, it's like when I posted the thing, I was like, dude, I don't understand the Ferkser hype. And everyone responded. They're like, well, who's Ryan Tannehill going to throw to? They don't have any other tight ends, and the top 4 or 5 reasons had nothing to do with Anthony Ferkser. I'm like, at what point are you gonna say this guy's a good player? right? That's what I'm looking for. So, and then as you saw, like the problem with not being talented and chasing that type of volume for receivers is like you can always bring in someone more talented, and then your opportunity kind of, it just vanishes. But look, I understand.
It was interesting though that he played, I think in 2020 he played more snaps from the slot than as a traditional tight end.
That was one data point that I did learn. So someone did, I think it was Linda Lyons.
Yes, my
So
girl.
shout out to the homie. She brought up that point, which was pretty good. So there were definitely some interesting tidbits, but just not enough for me to.
They weren't talking about his talent. Yeah,
just not enough for me to be like, I actually want to be in on this guy. But yeah, sorry I interrupted you. But yeah, what do you think about the rest of the offense?
Yeah, so we've already talked and hit on a little bit wide receiver switching teams. And that we've seen Hopkins and Diggs, they are elite talents. We knew they were elite talents. Do we now say, will Julio also wind up like that? I don't see him overtaking AJ Brown. These guys are just bonkers, so talented, both of them. I don't see, like, people are saying Julio's going to lead them in targets. I don't think so. But the thing about Tannehill too, he was hyper efficient, right?
Yeah.
Play action, just a monster. They were amazing. They had a nice balanced offense with Henry running through it. And people were worried, like, can Ryan Tannehill keep his efficiency up? Well, yeah, now he can. He's got Julio Jones now. I think I'm still in on Tannehill. Although I don't know if you're seeing this already because this just happened, but I just assume in Dynasty Tannehill's ADP is just going to shoot up to way too high.
Yeah, he's going up.
Yeah, so
he's going up, but I think he's going up to where he belongs. Like, I've always felt that Tannehill should be a top 10, top 12 dynasty quarterback. He's been that good ever since he stepped on the field for the Titans. I was a little bit concerned, like you, because I'm of the belief that adding weapons to an offense that makes the offense better is a good thing more often than not, right? There's obviously a gray area there. If they added like Julio Jones and they added Michael Thomas and they added like, Jared, like, okay, hold on, that's not good for the offense. But AJ Brown by himself is not an offense, right? Like AJ Brown plus Derrick Henry would not have been an ideal offense. As good as Anthony Firkser is, that would not have been a competent offense because they lost Corey Davis, they lost Jonnu Smith, who aren't necessarily elite fantasy assets, but they were difference makers for their offense. So I'm really, really happy that they added Julio Jones because I think adding Julio Jones not only helps AJ Brown from a training, mental learning perspective. I love that, but also from a defensive perspective, like how are you going to stop? How are you going to stop Derrick Henry plus Julio Jones plus AJ Brown? You got to pick your poison now. So I think the efficiency and the quality of their targets as a whole goes up. So maybe AJ Brown sees a little bit of dip on the target volume that he would have seen. I didn't think he was going to get 175 targets anyways, even without Julio Jones. But maybe he sees a little bit of a dip there. But I think the efficiency for AJ Jones and the offense as a whole, kind of comes back to meet what they've been doing in the past couple of years, right?
Absolutely. And defenses can't just stack the box now. I mean, that was the worry of, not that you can really stack the box and stop a monster like Derrick Henry, right? But it was looking a little scary there for the Titans. I don't know if I mentioned this in my article. I should have for Football Guys, but just the depth, that was the little bit of a scare there with, Josh Reynolds really, like, nobody's going to not, without Julio, everyone's just going to double AJ Brown, and who are they going to have on the outside? Josh Reynolds, really, or Firkser? So that definitely scared me. Adding Julio makes them just all around better team. And Tannehill is going to have a fantastic season. Yeah,
they weren't going to run many three wide receiver sets with Josh Reynolds as wide receiver 2 and whatever they're pulling off the street for wide receiver 3, right? Now they can actually do it. Josh Reynolds goes back to the role that he should be in, which is a tertiary target, an afterthought for the defense, hopefully, so he can thrive. And then Julio Jones, I'm not even sure. I don't even know what defense they're going to do. Are they going to bracket AJ Brown more? Are they going to bracket Julio Jones more? Julio Jones to me is still elite. To me, he's a top 5 wide receiver all time top 5 wide receiver easily. And I don't think he's washed. I don't think he's washed, right? I think he's 32, and look, he's not 28-year-old Julio, but he's also not a bum. So, I think he's still a very, very elite top end talent in the league. And, going from Matt Ryan, Tannehill is actually good. I think Ryan Tannehill is a better quarterback than Matt Ryan, first of all. But it's going to be very interesting. Is he going to get the same volume that he got in Atlanta? Probably not, right? So maybe it's a dip down for Julio on the production side. But overall, for the rest of the piece of the offense, I was jumping for joy. I mean, I have so much Tannehill in my leagues. I draft Tannehill every single year in Superflex leagues because he's always been a value. Tannehill and Kirk Cousins.
Yep.
And I won't be drafting him anymore this year because I'm seeing him go much earlier. So he's going where he deserves to be. And, you know, when people are going where they deserve to be, I'm like, I'm a cheap guy. So I like to look for value. So I probably won't have much of it. But
You're screw here too.
yeah. So I think it's very good for the offense as a whole. But it'll be interesting. I'm very excited to watch this offense. I'm very excited to watch Derrick Henry father the entire Jacksonville secondary again. He just does it every single year. He just adopts all of them, you know, pays child support and does this thing. It's excellent. I love it. It's one of my favorite things in the NFL.
Well,
So I think
he can't do it to Josh Norman this year. That was like, oh my god,
yeah.
that whole game was so embarrassing.
Is Josh Allen still in the? Is he still in the NFL? Or did he retire after that one? I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see. I'm a big fan of the offense as a whole, so we'll kind of see where they go. But it's an exciting time.
It is, and I'm with you on the Julio chain. Like he's not washed. The recency bias is absolutely insane. He finished wide receiver 53 last year. The 4 years before that, he was top 6 every single year. 6'4", 5'3". Like, what are we doing? I get he had his injuries, but I'm still betting on him.
Yeah, I mean, on a points per game basis in the games he played, Julio was still like top 8. So that's kind of what you're looking for, you know. I mean, personally, look, I don't care as much if a wide receiver gets hurt. As long as they're not like gone for the entire season, I can still use them. If I miss a couple of games and that affects their total point scoring, I don't really care. I only care what they're giving me when they're playing, because it's not like Julio gets injured and I start a 0 right in my lineup. I just put someone else in that's not as good but still scores me points. So it's not that's like just my own personal philosophy. I don't really care that much about injuries as long as they're not like Deontay Johnson where they go in, they get hurt like first snap and they're gone. Like
my God.
That's the worst. The times I played Deontay Johnson that he got hurt in the first quarter and just like I'm like, well, now you fucked me, because
didn't that happen like 3 times?
It happened at least
2
twice.
or 3 times.
It happened at least twice for
my
me.
gosh.
I remember very painfully. I'm just like, okay, well now I get a 0, so that's awesome. But hopefully Julio doesn't do that to us. For all the knocks against him about how he's like always hurt and injury prone, he has not missed many games in his career.
That's what I'm saying.
Until last season.
Recency bias just puts these really, really bad narratives in our heads sometimes.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's all I got today for the player analysis. I mean, I want to talk a little bit about other just random shit, because I know you and I have gone back on Twitter. We both love music. I'm a big fan of EDM music. So I'm going to Coachella 2022. So we bought tickets already. Me and my friends. We're gonna rent a nice house, have a pool party, go out, do all the stuff I usually do, and just have a blast. Are you going to be going to Coachella 2022? That is a key question.
I wish. I actually just bought ACL tickets.
What's ACL?
Austin City Limits. So it's
okay, City Limits.
Yeah, it's right in my backyard. So I was like, you know what? And it's so I need to get out to Coachella ASAP, and I'm sure it's gonna be lit. The line was probably gonna be massive and crazy, but having I know I can go back to my house. Yeah. And just know it's down the street. ACL is it's so nice when you don't have to wait for an Uber or some kind of big bus to take you back, and you're just
that's pretty
mess.
Key. That's pretty key. When is Austin City Limits?
That's in October. They do 2 weekends, and the lineup was subpar, but it's okay. I'm just ready to get out there.
The lineup I found the lineup really doesn't matter too much. As long as you have a good squad you're going with, the music is good enough to enjoy it. As long as you have some drinks, whatever else you guys want to do, and you have a good time. But that's basically what I do. I don't even look Coachella comes up before the lineup's released, so I don't even care about the lineup. I know there will be enough DJs that I listen to that I can have a good time. That's absolutely pretty much what it comes down to. What do you like? What type of music do they have at Austin? Is it everything? Is it do they have country? Do they have other stuff? What is it?
It's honestly everything. My favorite is also electronic. I got into it when I was in college very heavily, and I'm
everyone
loving it. I remember seeing this one video of a meme of these 2 guys and washing dishes at 9 a.m. and they've got the beat going on. It doesn't matter what time of day, whatever, they're always just vibing, and that's just funny. It's carried with me through till now.
Yeah, we all have those videos. People recorded me at work when I was when I was working on Excel, and we just play the music late at night, and everyone would be going crazy. EDM is awesome.
It's my absolute favorite, and it's just you can't beat those vibes, and everyone at the shows are just in the best mood ever. Everyone's vibing, friends, is
everyone's friendly.
Yeah,
Unlike Twitter,
exactly.
everyone's having a good time. What we
It's-
need to do, we need to get all the fucking analysts that hate each other to go to a music festival, you know, do some freaking happy pills and just like
oh
relax.
my God.
Just everyone loves each other. They'll be like, "Oh my God, I love you, dude. Like Zach Moss doesn't stink. He's awesome. Your analysis is great." It's because that's what we need to do. We get
So
everyone that hates each
sorry.
other just into a nice festival
You're like,
atmosphere.
dude, I'm so sorry. I said your chart sucked, man. Fuck
Yeah,
your numbers.
that's exactly
Oh
what
my
we need to
God.
do.
So
All right,
funny.
look, I don't want to keep you for too long. Look, I really appreciate you taking the time, hop on the show to talk about all this stuff with me. You know, I'm sure we'll have you on again down the line. Hopefully, the Bills Mafia has another great season. Wish you guys all the best on that front. And you know, I'm just happy that you got and joined the Dynasty community. Not the Dynasty community, but just the fantasy football community as a whole.
Yeah.
Like I said, I really enjoy your work. So looking forward to your articles. I'll definitely be on the lookout for the Austin Eckler article
Yes.
whenever that drops. But again, for the people, for the pack, let them know where do they find you, where do they see your work, how do they support you, if you have a Patreon, whatever, anything you want to plug. It could be, could be if you have a makeup service, if you have a retail line, if you have a Bills Mafia like swag line, let them know where to find you and how to support you.
I wish. Oh my gosh, I need to do a side hustle like that, right? You can find me at FFB_Victoria. I'm putting out articles for Ball Blast. I'll be doing a start sit half-hour show before the games on Sundays. That'll be fun there. I'm also doing another Sundays are for the girls show with Linda, Steph, and Cooter. That's
What
gonna
is that
be
one? I'm in on that one. I want to
we've
watch that
been
show.
we've been kind of like teasing it here and there, but we've just decided we're all in. We're just doing a fun half-hour show before
So
kickoff.
every Sunday before kickoff. That's awesome.
Yes,
All right,
Sundays are for the girls. That's what it will be.
but the
Hopefully,
boys can watch too. The boys
boys
can
can
watch too.
watch, but it's for the yeah.
Yeah,
No,
got
I'm
it.
just messing. Somebody actually did message stuff and say, but I'm a boy. Anyways, silly. Putting out content for your football guys, like I already said, I'm putting the Austin Eckler article out, and you can find my rankings there too for PPR and standard as well, all
Oh, cool.
season long.
Awesome. All right, guys. So if you want to see the ranks, head on over Football Guys. Another great group. A lot of good folks over there. Victoria, Troy, Dave. Joe's an awesome leader. I've spoken to him a couple of times. So big fan of all they're doing there. And then again, Ball Bass content with Kate and Michelle. Victoria's helping them out there as well. So if you guys like what you see, make sure you head on over there. If you don't like what you see, nobody cares. Doesn't matter. I'm just kidding. So just make sure you guys support her. Big fan of her work, and looking forward to have you on again in the future. But thanks for hopping on.
Thank you so much for having me. Had a blast.